Hello my fellow Tubians, today we are reviewing the Dell Inspiron 3000. Now Dell's Inspiron series is kind of their mainstream de facto laptop and it has sub-tiers. So you have the high-end 7000 series, the most popular mid-range 5000 series, and then you have the value-orientated 3000 series. The one we have here is rocking the latest Intel configuration. So we've got the Core i7 1165G7 processor, 12 gigabytes of RAM. Additionally, we do have a 512 GB solid state drive, Intel's integrated Iris Xe graphics. Furthermore, we do have Wi-Fi 5 and also Bluetooth. And lastly, this is a full HD 15-inch display. And in today's video, like always, we're going to see what Dell got right with this laptop, where it might be dropping the ball, and ultimately answer the question of whether or not this is the right machine for you. As always, if you guys enjoy the content, hit that like button, sub to my channel. Once you go Souls Tech, you don't go back. Starting off with a real quick unboxing, the first thing you of course have is the box itself, and it's a pretty standard looking cardboard box by Dell, not a whole lot to see here. Once you remove the content seal on the top side of the box and open it up, inside you'll find a few things. First and foremost, of course, in a ton of plastic wrapping, you have the Dell Inspiron 3000 itself. Remove all of that and here it is. This is a chunky laptop, but more on that in a minute. You also have a mere 45-watt charging adapter, which is slightly concerning given that we have the highest configuration i7 processor in here. But beyond that, you also have the wall outlet cable itself, and finally, of course, the quick start guide, warranty, and regulation information, and all that fun stuff. In terms of design, keep in mind this is Dell's base variant as far as the Inspiron series goes, so you do have a full hard TPU or complete plastic finish, if you will. And this laptop has a reasonable weight of 3.9 pounds, but I wouldn't call it a lightweight laptop by any means. It definitely has a fair bit of weight, especially if you are going to carry it all day. With that said, it is worth noting that the top side of this machine again has a full plastic finish, but it has this nice rough texture that's definitely designed for durability. You do, however, still get that shiny Dell logo that you find with some higher variants. The rear side of the laptop essentially has your plastic hinge brackets, and you'll also notice in the center you do have the exhaust vent, and this is a nice thing because a lot of laptops often have them facing towards the screen. This is towards the rear side, so this is going to be good for the overall lifespan of your LCD screen. As far as port diversity goes, it's actually quite respectable on this machine. So you of course have the proprietary DC charging port, a HDMI port, an Ethernet port, 2 USB-A ports, and of course the good old headphone jack. On the other side, you have an additional USB-A port and a full-sized SD card reader. Unfortunately, there is no USB-C port on board, which truly is a bit of a disappointment. The bottom side of this machine is pretty plain and simple. So the first thing you notice is this relatively small air intake vent, which is a little concerning again given that this is the i7 configuration. You have the rubber grips to keep it in place, and finally you'll notice you do have two speaker grills, one on either side. Yes, this is a stereo speaker setup. Sound test will happen later on in the video. Upon unfolding this laptop, you are greeted by a large plastic inner chassis. And I'll be honest, it doesn't look like it's anything premium, but again, that's totally fine. And towards the left side, you of course have the plastic trackpad. Now, despite looking cheap, it actually doesn't feel that cheap, which is a great thing. So yes, there is a moderate amount of flex towards either corner of the actual trackpad, but the clicks are nice and tactile, and it's a really well calibrated trackpad. Honestly, it's definitely a level up compared to what HP offers, for example, in a similar class range. As far as the keyboard goes, it's a generally good experience with a few caveats. So first and foremost, the keycaps are on nice and sturdy. They don't feel cheap in the slightest. Furthermore, you have an ample amount of key travel. Every keystroke feels nice and tactile. Generally speaking, it's a comfortable typing experience. You also have the inclusion of a full-sized 10 keypad, which isn't a compact afterthought. It's definitely designed to be there in a comfortable manner. Some of the things holding this keyboard back, unfortunately, is the fact that you get no backlighting whatsoever, regardless of which configuration of this laptop you get. Additionally, what's up with those arrow keys? It's like they're dying of starvation. Past the keyboard, we come to the hinges. And while this is a dual hinge mechanism, I have to be honest here guys, there is a fair bit of wobble and the hinges are tuned way too tight, which is concerning because there's a lot of pressure applied when you actually lift this laptop, and I definitely have fears that in the long term it is prone to potential damage. So be aware of that. Now, as far as display fitting goes, you have a relatively thick chin with the Dell branding. I suppose it's okay. The bezels, while not as sleek as higher end Dell laptops, are definitely passable in late 2021. When you get to the top side, you again have a relatively thick forehead, and in the dead center you have that less than ideal 720p webcam, which while quite alright in broad daylight is quite miserable when you're using it in low light settings. As far as the display quality itself goes, I wasn't expecting anything glorious, and Dell definitely did not deliver anything glorious, so we're on the same page. But despite that, I still think this is not a terrible display. It does have some visible shortcomings though. So you do have a standard 15.6-inch IPS display panel with a full HD or 1080p resolution, and a standard 60Hz refresh rate. Where things do get gloomy for this machine is its mere 59% sRGB rating or 45% NTSC color rating. Definitely not a machine designed for color intensive activities like photo editing, color grading, or creative uses in general. Furthermore, with a mere peak brightness of just 250 nits, don't expect this thing to be very helpful in really bright settings, particularly when using it outdoors. The one good thing about this laptop is that it has really respectable viewing angles. I generally found unless you're literally looking at it from a 90-degree angle across the room, you're going to be okay and find that you have a lot of viewing space. Performance is truly an interesting subject here. So yes, we do have the high-end i7 configuration, and any day-to-day tasks like web browsing, typing up a Word document, or of course watching HD videos is gonna be a breeze for this machine. But when you start pushing it to its limit by doing something extreme like let's say 4K video editing, you realize just how underpowered the i7 this device is. With a 13-watt TDP, it's just severely underpowered. You start noticing regular frame drops and this machine just can't keep itself together. Same thing in the gaming department, albeit to a better degree. So games like GTA 5 run at a steady 30 plus FPS at medium settings, but this machine just can't keep up a steady frame rate. Time to time you do see frame drops, and that's often because the processor just isn't keeping up with the demand of the application. One thing that Dell definitely has going for it are the thermals on this machine. So what I found is that under a sustained load, I hit an average surface temperature of just about 32 to 33 degrees Celsius, which is very respectable. And under absolute peak loads where you push the laptop to its limit in an unrealistic scenario, we hit temperatures just shy of 44 degrees Celsius. Again, this is not bad at all. Now granted, we do have a underpowered i7 chip, but still, as far as fan noise goes, during idle loads, you just can't hear this thing, which is a great thing, so it's relatively silent. Under peak loads, I was able to make the fan noise go as high as 44 decibels, but again, this is for relatively brief and intermittent periods at a time. If my life depended on it and I could just bring one laptop with good battery life, you can sure as heck bet it wouldn't be this machine. So with a mere battery life of just 6.5 hours at 50% brightness doing low to moderately intensive tasks, this is just bad. Honestly, Inspiron series in general has pretty mediocre battery life, but I really wasn't expecting the 3000 series to be this bad, so keep that in your considerations. Furthermore, the speaker quality on this machine isn't what I expected. I mean, yes, this is a value-based budget laptop, so I wasn't expecting great speakers, but there is a lot of distortion as soon as you go above 70% volume. On top of that, the overall peak volume really isn't all that high, so the speaker experience is gonna be less than ideal. Here's a quick listen for you.
Cause we live tragic, I can't live average to be alive's magic. Turn it up in the back cause I'm grabbing everything I want, get in my way and I'm stabbing. I'll be moving crowds till I'm 6 feet napping. They need another fix, hooked on like an addict. I got my eyes on the prize and it's changing lives. I wanna live till I die, make a difference right. I wanna give those in need a reason to fight. I wanna live every day like...
Here's the power summary, guys. Starting all the way as little as $270 for the Celeron configuration, all the way up to $770 USD for the top-end i7 configuration, the Inspiron 3000 comes in many flavors. Ideally, I would suggest getting the i5 variant as I think that's a sweet spot. The performance you get with the i7 is just not worth it. It's severely underpowered and just doesn't give you your bang for the buck. Of course, with that said, Dell does make some compromise to achieve this relatively low price in the form of a full plastic build, no backlighting on the keyboard, and abysmal battery life. And the battery life has no excuse whatsoever, because honestly 6.5 hours is just not acceptable given the fact that the competition is often offering so much more than that. And Inspiron series in general hasn't been too well known for their battery life, so pick that up, Dell. Aside from that, this is a great machine. I would recommend for anyone who's looking for a value conscious device. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you did, hit that like button, sub to my channel. Thanks for watching. See ya.